On a warm, golden afternoon, sunlight drifted through a small bakery on Riverside Avenue, wrapping the air in sweet scents and gentle warmth. But in the doorway stood a quiet storm, Hannah, thin and exhausted, with little Ella beside her, both carrying hunger and fading hope. If you believe in compassion, hope, and second chances, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more stories. Let's begin. Warm afternoon sunlight drifted across Riverside Avenue, washing the little bakery in a soft golden glow. Inside, the smell of warm bread and sweet vanilla wrapped around customers like a quiet embrace. Conversations floated gently through the air, blending with the soft clinking of cups and plates. It was a place where people felt safe, comfortable. Then the bell above the door chimed with a sound too delicate for the storm it carried. Hannah Cooper stepped in, thin and exhausted, her face hollowed by nights of worry. Her clothes bore the faint stains of sidewalks and long walks. At her side, Ella, no more than 6, held her mother's hand tightly. Her eyes were tired, yet they sparkled with a stubborn, flickering hope only children seem able to keep alive through hunger. They hadn't eaten properly in days. Ella's last meal, a shared, shrinking half of an apple, still gnawed at Hannah's conscience. She approached the counter slowly, choosing her words as if each one might break her dignity further. Her voice trembled when she asked whether the bakery had any expired pastries, something they might throw away at closing. Anything. The workers exchanged hesitant glances. Their boss's rules were strict. Their silence felt like a door closing. Hannah lowered her gaze, cheeks burning. She could already feel Ella's small fingers trembling in her hand. Ella's eyes wandered toward a strawberry-topped cake inside the display, beautiful, bright, impossible. Sometimes, hopelessness has a sound. Today, it was the quiet sigh Hannah tried to swallow. And that was when someone else quietly noticed. Near the window, half hidden by soft afternoon light, stood Daniel Hawthorne. Dressed simply, he blended into the bakery despite being one of the city's wealthiest entrepreneurs. He visited often, not for business, but for the peace the place granted him, a fragile peace he desperately needed ever since losing his wife and young daughter. The blueberry pie he came for reminded him of weekend mornings he used to spend with them. These small rituals were all he had left of a life that once felt whole. But today, the tenderness of memory was disrupted. Daniel heard Hannah's trembling voice. It wasn't just the words, it was the cracking beneath them. He turned and saw her fully, a mother trying to stand tall on shaking legs, her pride barely holding under the weight of survival. Ella tried to hide behind her sleeve, polite even in hunger. Pain recognizes pain. Daniel felt the old ache in his chest stir. He didn't see a beggar or a stranger. He saw two people who had been pushed to the edge by life's cruelty. And he saw a moment he knew he could not ignore. Quietly, without drawing a single eye toward himself, he stepped toward the counter. Daniel's voice was calm but firm as he placed his order. The strawberry cake, 2 warm meals, and a selection of pastries and sandwiches, please. The workers blinked. It was enough food for a small family. Daniel simply nodded, offering no explanation, no grand smile, no hint of who he really was. He didn't want attention. He didn't want owed gratitude. He just wanted a mother and child to eat. He asked the staff to give everything to Hannah. When they handed her the large bag of food, Hannah stared at it as if it might vanish. Then understanding washed over her, and her face softened into disbelief. Her hands shook so intensely she nearly dropped the bag. Tears pooled in her eyes, tears she had held back for months for Ella's sake. Ella pressed her small hands to her mouth, her eyes widening with a joy so fragile Daniel felt something in him break. The workers looked down, ashamed of their hesitation. Daniel stepped back, attempting to leave quietly before Hannah noticed him. He wasn't doing this to feel good. He wasn't doing this out of pity. He was doing it because he saw a reflection of loss and suffering that mirrored his own. But as he turned toward the door, a soft, trembling sound reached him. "Thank you." The words barely left Hannah's lips, but they reached him with startling clarity. It was not loud, not dramatic, it was honest. Raw. A sound shaped by exhaustion, gratitude, and the unbearable relief of finally being seen. Daniel froze for a moment. It had been so long since he had heard sincerity aimed at him, not his title, not his wealth, but him. Something warm and unfamiliar began to loosen the cold numbness wrapped around his heart since the accident. Outside, sunlight spilled across the pavement in soft waves. Daniel stepped into it slowly, breathing in the warm air as if waking from a long sleep. He looked back through the glass. Inside, Hannah stood holding the bag to her chest like it was life itself. Ella tugged at her sleeve, pointing softly at the cake with a smile that almost seemed unreal. It was a moment of quiet magic, one he felt honored to witness. Daniel realized that the world hadn't given him many reasons to hope recently. But maybe he had just rediscovered one. Hannah and Ella walked to a small wooden bench just outside the bakery, settling under the gentle shade of a tree. They unpacked the food carefully, almost reverently. Ella let out a giggle when she saw the cake. The sound was soft, pure, and so full of relief that it made passing strangers smile without knowing why. Hannah tasted her first real bite of food in days. Tears blurred her vision, but this time they were warm, tears of release instead of despair. She brushed a hand over Ella's hair, whispering a promise she hadn't had the strength to speak aloud in weeks. "We're okay now, at least for today." Daniel watched from a respectful distance, not wanting them to feel observed, only wanting to see them safe. Watching them eat brought a gentle ache to his chest, but not the painful ache of grief. Something else. Something healing. He turned to leave, his steps slow, the sunlight warming the edge of his coat. Kindness doesn't require wealth. It requires noticing. It requires choosing to care, quietly, when no one is watching. As Hannah and Ella shared their cake, laughing softly, leaning into each other like morning and sunlight, Daniel understood that the moment had changed him too. For the first time in years, he felt the faint stirrings of hope within himself. Because sometimes saving someone else becomes the first step in saving yourself. Thanks for being here, like and subscribe to keep more unforgettable stories coming.